We have a quorum. I call the meeting of the Northern Metropolis Development Bill to order. Let's start the meeting. Now, I'd like to ask the government officials to come in. Welcome. The Bills Committee started the clause-by-clause examination of the bill in the last meeting. We will start from Part 3, Division 1 of the bill today. That is Measures for Facilitating Development of Northern Metropolis Town Planning. Members may refer to LC paper CB bracket 2984/2026, page C3231. That is the English version. The legal advisor wrote to the administration on the 16th of July asking about matters relating to the bill. That is LC paper CB bracket 1880/2026 bracket 02. The administration already submitted their written reply, that is at LC paper CB bracket 1956/2026 bracket 01. When we come to the relevant clauses, member may refer to the letter of the legal advisor, and the legal advisor may express views in relation to the government's reply. We just received the administration's reply to the public's views and the members' views on the meeting at the 29th of July. The Secretariat will send you all the English version after the meeting today. Now, I'd like to ask the administration to continue with the clause-by-clause examination now. As they explain about the principal ordinance, please refer to the relevant schedules and the annexes. We are scrutinizing the principal ordinance of the bill. The subsidiary legislation is for members' preview only. Members who would like to put questions may press the Request to Speak button when we come to the relevant clauses. The administration, please. Mr. Ronald Chang, Principal Assistant Secretary, please. Thank you. Good morning. Please refer to C3231. We're at Part 3, Measures for Facilitating Development of Northern Metropolis, Division 1, Town Planning. Please refer to our PowerPoint presentation. There are 3 parts to this clause. Clause 5, Interpretation. Clause 6, Permissions for Uses or Development of Northern Metropolis Land or Buildings. To put it simply, we hope that through a streamlined procedures, we can expedite the permission granting for the use of NM land or building. Clause 7, Regulations for Facilitating Uses or Development of Northern Metropolis Land or Buildings. Chief Executive and Council may make regulations. You may refer to our brief at Annex B1. We do have a town planning regulations on Northern Metropolis. It set out the regulations, the scope of application, that is conservation area will not be included. It also set out the streamlined procedures for application to the Town Planning Board from 5 to 7 years to 3 years. Now, on Northern Metropolis land or building, the definition is that it means any land or building that falls wholly within an area in the Northern Metropolis that is included in a CAP 131 plan that is set out in the outline zoning plan. Building has the meaning given by Section 1A bracket 1 of Cap 131, that is Town Planning Ordinance. Development has the meaning given by Section 1A bracket 1 of the Cap 131. These 6 members have questions regarding this part. Am I right? I will first ask Mr. Wu Yingpeng to ask his questions. Thank you. Now, I'd like to ask about Clause 5, interpretation. It says that the land or building should fall wholly within the area in the Northern Metropolis. Is there any difficulties in terms of execution? This representation excludes any land or building that falls outside the Northern Metropolis. Pragmatically, we may come across many difficulties. We have roads, rivers, and lot segregation that may fall within and also outside the Northern Metropolis. If the part of a land fall outside the Northern Metropolis, they will not fall within the streamlined procedures. I wonder if the government will consider addressing these issues. That is to say, if the major part of the land or building falls within the Northern Metropolis, then they can enjoy a streamlined application procedures. Should we not empower the Secretary for Development to make an adjudication on such cases? Permanent Secretary, thank you. We note that there are cases where the land or building may span across the boundary of the Northern Metropolis. However, we're of the view that as we are drafting the laws, as we are explaining the streamlined procedures to the society, we need to be clear. And that's why our view now is that the Northern Metropolis land or building should mean any land or building that falls wholly within the Northern Metropolis. We want to be clear. The members suggested introducing a mechanism allowing the Secretary to address any upcoming issues where lands or building may straddle across the boundary of Northern Metropolis. This may cause confusion. So we are not going to adopt such an approach. If the cases depicted by the members do arise, that is, if a building or land does straddle across the boundary of the Northern Metropolis, they may adjust their development project accordingly. Thank you. Any follow-up questions? No. Ms. Kwok Foo-young. Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding Part 3, Division 1, Town Planning of the bill, it is stated that we're going to have a Northern Metropolis Development Bill addressing town planning applications regarding the metropolis. I welcome it. I have some questions that is relevant to the questions put by Mr. Wu Yingpeng. I'd like to seek the government explanation regarding such a scenario. There may be a large-scale development project that may straddle across Yunlong and Tuen Mun. That is, a part of it will fall within another metropolis, some part of it may fall outside the NM. In the future, will the Town Planning Board act in accordance with the Town Planning Ordinance or the Northern Metropolis Development Ordinance? Maybe the government can't explain with such an illustration. In the meeting last Friday, the Permanent Secretary said that the Town Planning Ordinance may be amended in light of the Northern Metropolis Development Bill. I wonder if the administration can explain further how we are going to amend the Town Planning Ordinance. Thank you. Permanent Secretary. Regarding the first question, On the example illustrated by the member, there may be a place that span across Yunlong and Tumun. Yunlong is within the NM, Tumun is not. If you look at the outline zoning plan, we're talking about the Hongshui-Kyu OZP. Most of Hongshui-Kyu is within Yunlong, that is within NM. Part of it fall within Tumun, that is outside NM. As we've explained, under such situation, we will include Hongshui-Kyu OZP into NM. In other words, the land covered by Hongshui-Kyu OZP will enjoy the streamlined development procedures, despite the fact that it may be within Tumun. There are 41 OZPs involved in NM. Hongshui-Kyu is one of them. It may include areas within Tumun. So as long as the land fall within the Hongshui-Kyu OZP, even though it may be in Tumun, it can enjoy the streamlined procedures. So you've decided that as long as the land fall within the OZP, they will enjoy the streamlined procedures, because this is a decision already made by the Development Bureau and Planning Department. Yes. Madam Chair, your interpretation is completely correct. The member just raised another question. That is, now we're at the Town Planning Division. It's about CAP 131 Town Planning Ordinance. To put simply, principally speaking, regarding the streamlined procedures, we are going to amend the relevant provisions in CAP 131. Regarding the scope of application, we will clarify it. When we come to the relevant clauses, that is Clause 6, Clause 7, we may explain further. Our idea is that we are going to streamline the development procedures and planning procedures. We're going to include that in both CAP 131 and the Northern Metropolis Development Bill. Thank you. Any follow-up questions? No. Mr. Chan Xiu-Hong. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make sure that when we interpret the meanings of the phrases, there will not be any confusion. Regarding the area of Northern Metropolis, there is a time gap among different pieces of legislation. If there is any amendment to the OZP that fall within the Northern Metropolis, if there is any adjustments in accordance with the District Council Ordinance, then the Chief Executive in Council may make relevant amendments. But if we look at the interpretation, Part 3, Division 1, Clause 5, Northern Metropolis land or building means any land or building that falls wholly within an area in the Northern Metropolis that is included in a CAP 131 plan. Now, I'd like the government to clarify this. First, on land or building, the meaning is clear in CAP 131, is completely in alignment. Now, regarding CAP 131 plan, in interpretation is clearly set out. The Town Planning Board may exercise their power under CAP 131 to assess the town planning application. We're talking about land or building that falls within an area in the Northern Metropolis that is included in the CAP 131 plan is clear. There may be cases where a piece of land or building fall within the Northern Metropolis partially. The Chief Executive and Council may make relevant amendment. If we just look at CAP 131 plan, at a certain time juncture, the land may fall within Northern Metropolis or may not fall within the NM. And Chief Executive and Council may make amendment. How is the administration going to address the issue? Should we not refer to also Schedule 1 in the interpretation so that the schedule will have the will be the final version? Because the Chief Executive and Council may make amendment to the plans. Because some land or building before and after amendment may fall within and outside an NM. I hope that the government can further explain. Thank you.
Who will take the question, please? Yes, Ms. So Director. Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your question. Let me put it simply. In interpretation in Clause 5, it is very clear because it says categorically that falls wholly within an area in the NM. And the NM earlier on in Clause 3 has been defined, and that is Schedule 1. So we don't have to mention again Schedule 1 because the area of NM is very clear, and that is the plan in relation to Schedule 1, and that is so very clear. And Mr. Chan talked about the worry about the time gap. That won't happen because at any time the NM area is very clear, and that is the plan referred to in Schedule 1. And later on, if the CE in Council amend the plan under the two circumstances mentioned, that might be something in the distant future. And if the amendment is made, the plan is changed. So like what the PS said, the plan is clear at any juncture of time. And the CE in Council may exercise its power and they will be making the amendment based on the plan at that prevailing time. Next, Mr. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Madam Chair. Building and land carry an important definition, and it says the building 1A bracket 1 of CAP 131, and then land doesn't carry a definition under CAP 131. And we know that under different ordinances, land comes with a different definition. So can the administration explain that in Division 1, Part 3, when you talk about land in the NM, what do you mean by the land? How is it defined? That's the first question. The second concern, we want to be very clear. The definition affects how Division 1 is going to apply. We have these streamlined procedures whereby the procedure can be completed in 2 months, and the premise is that it should be a land or building in the NM. So you talk about falls wholly within an area in the NM. And the government has already come up with a plan on the NM area, so there is no need for us to have further discussion. Is that right? You said that it falls wholly within an area in the NM that is included in a CAP 131 plan. The NM covers a vast area. It is defined in Schedule 1, and you would also be publishing it on the website, and that is Plan NM 001. And you said that there are altogether 41 OZP plans under CAP 131. Does it mean that all we need to do is to look at the 41 OZPs and we know the whole picture? Is that how we should understand the situation? Well, Ms. Khan comes with 2 questions. The definition under building and land under Cap 1.3, can I defer to the Planning Department to help out? On Ms. Khan's second question, NM land or building, the definition under Clause 5, it sets that falls wholly within an area in the NM that is included in a Cap 131 plan. Like what we explained, now if we look at OZPs under Cap 131, we have a total of 41 OZPs which should be included in the NM area. So that is already fixed or decided. And then we talk about streamlining procedures in a minute. Say if for a certain plat we want to change its land use, we'll go by a streamlined procedure. And if it is to enjoy the streamlined procedure, it should fall wholly within the 41 OZPs, because that is how we define the area of NM area. So the whole land or building should fall within the NM area. So we have already set the area for NM. Now, as to what actually happens, it depends on the land, the area owned by the developer in the future. So Planning Department, can you explain the definition of land? Thank you, Ms. Khan, for your question. On the definition of building and land for the NM ordinance, it's similar to Cap 131, building. We also use the definition includes a structure or part of a structure. As for land, there is no definition under of land under Cap 131. So we use we understand it by general terms. So all the land in the 41 OZPs will be covered. So we will adopt our general understanding of the term land, similar to what we are using under Cap 131. Now, in a minute, we would be looking at Clause 3, and that the definition of land is provided there. So when we talk about the definition of land in that clause, then we will use the definition of land under, say, the land resumption ordinance or the railways, the related railways ordinance. So the land as defined in that clause will be different in the definition of land here in Clause 5. Yes, Ms. Khan is right. The streamlined procedures have to be directly linked to the relevant ordinance. So for town planning, it should be linked to Cap 131. And then in the next session, we will be talking about land resumption. So we will be linking that up to to Cap 124 and other ordinances under which land can be resumed. Any follow-up? No? Next one, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I would like to take a broader view here. In simple terms, town planning ordinance, like what you said, well, land and building are part of the town planning ordinance, but then town planning ordinance targets very much at the change of land use. Now, we're talking about an overall legal framework, and then you will also be amending the relevant town planning regulations. We're targeting the change in land use in these regulations. While there are two roads or pathways, one is faster, the other one is slower. So based on the different circumstances, you may be providing a shortcut to certain scenarios. So my first question here is this. Now, we have this legal framework, the overall primary legislation, and then that we will have other dedicated regulations in the future. Now, there would be Section 12A under Cap 131 and Section 16. Well, the former is about change of plan, and then the latter, it's a change of use. And for the former one, you can make an application without a pre-existing plan. You can apply for new uses without a statutory OZP, or you can say in a statutory OZP, you can apply for change in use under columns 1 or 2. Now we're scrutinizing this bill. So in the future, in the NM area, for applications which should originally adopt the pathway of Section 12A, then the applicants can resort to Section 16 to get things done. My question is, can they, or should they, or must they? So that's my first question. Thank you, Madam Chair. PS or the DOJ? Okay, PS. So this is very much a legal question. They can do so or they must do so. I'll be studying the relevant provisions myself. Maybe can I defer to the DOJ colleague to help? Now for clause 1, bracket 1, and that is related to what Mr. Lam said. In the past, before the amendment exercise, we must use Section 12A. After the bill is passed, we can use Section 16. So that's related to clause bracket 1. And that is to say the Town Planning Board may, in accordance with the Northern Metropolis Town Planning or Regulation, grant permission. So the word used here is may. Yes, the English version is may. The Chinese version is hao. So I think what we mean is that they must and they can only use Section 16. So I'll see if the DOJ colleague has anything to add. Now we are already touching clause 6 here. I allow the administration to respond whether may or must. I think the drafting is quite clear here. Maybe the DOJ can give a brief reply here. And when we come to clause 6, then we can further discuss this. DOJ, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Under the present Cap 13, there are different ways of making an application for change of use. Section 12A or Section 16, applying for a permission. And the amendment exercise this time is to allow, the applicants to resort to the way of applying for permission to change the land use. So that is a much streamlined procedure. So they may or they have the right to, in accordance with the new regulations, to go through this Section 16 procedure. So that is a may. So they may or may not opt for this route. Is that right? I think in the drafting it's very clear. So maybe we can further discuss this when we come to clause 6. Madam Chair, can I further follow up? No, I don't think so. Well, let's stick to clause 5, and maybe when we come to clause 6, we will come up with some other ideas as well. Mr. Hong come in. Clause 5, the land in the NM area, does it include water bodies? Because within NM area, there are water bodies. My question is related to Shenzhen River. How come that the area of the Shenzhen River is not included in the plan?
Permanent Secretary. Under Cap 131, the OZPs are about land, not water bodies, under most circumstances. The OZPs under Cap 131 are about land uses. So under most circumstances, we do not include water bodies. Mr. Hong has this question. We set out the scope of Northern Metropolis land or building under interpretation. The plan include water bodies. Why is it included? Well, that's because Part 3 is to set out the scope of Northern Metropolis, as I've explained. Regarding different streamlined procedures, it could be that only some part of the Northern Metropolis may fall within the scope of the streamlined procedures, so we need to set out clearly the boundary. Why do we include water bodies in the plan set out in Part 3? Because that's in Part 3 is also about the noise permit application. Some works may be done cross boundary. For example, the Hongshui-Qiuqian Railway. There may be works done at sea. If the works fall within the Northern Metropolis, we hope that they will enjoy the streamlined procedures, especially those relating to buildings and constructions. Mr. Hong asked why Shenzhen River is not included. The boundary between Hong Kong and Shenzhen is marked with the Shenzhen River. We only include the southern part of Shenzhen River within our administrative boundary. So some part of the Shenzhen River, especially the southern part of it, will be included in CAP 131 plan in Part 3 of the bill. Thank you. Any other questions? Now it's my turn. I have a few questions. Mr. Hong asked some of the questions that I'd like to put regarding waters. We now have low altitude economy. We have other developments on the land, at sea, in the air. Is the administration going to address other areas in the Northern Metropolis by way of subsidiary legislation? Say, for example, air-related, water-related issues that is not land or building? Because we are implementing this low-altitude economy sandbox in the Northern Metropolis, are you going to have subsidiary legislation addressing this? Because we are scrutinizing the principal ordinance, we'd like to know what is included, what is not, what will be addressed by way of subsidiary legislation. I hope that the administration will give us a clearer picture before the end of the scrutiny. 1/3 of the Northern Metropolis is land. We also have airspace there that we need to address. Part of the Shenzhen River may fall within the Northern Metropolis. Is the collaboration mechanism clear between Hong Kong and Shenzhen? I hope that the administration will set out clearly to us, because we don't have jurisdictions over the river, and now it's within the Northern Metropolis. I hope that we have clear documentation about that. Thank you. On Madam Chair's first question, Part 3 of the bill sets out the overall measures for facilitating development of Northern Metropolis. We set out clearly the scope of the Northern Metropolis is an overview. Now coming to the measures for the streamlined procedures, we may have different measures for different parts of NM because we have to look at what streamlined procedures should apply to which part of the Northern Metropolis. Now coming back to town planning, for amendment of land use, now people can invoke 12A instead of Section 16. We have to look at Cap 131 and the 41 OZPs drafted under the law. The 41 OZP are about land. This has all along been our practice for OZPs drafted under Cap 131. However, why do we include water bodies in the NM plan? That's because there are streamlined procedures about water bodies. Like the example that I quoted, we have cross-boundary works project. We will address the relevant issue at the relevant clauses. What about airspace? The Madam Chair just quoted the example of low altitude economy. We discussed this before. Low altitude economy is the territory-wide project. As we amend the relevant ordinances, say for example, unmanned aircraft regulations, we look at it at a territory-wide approach. We don't have to address it under this NM bill. I was just seeking your explanation and clarification. So legislations about airspace is like tax. It applies to the entire Hong Kong because NM accounts for 1/3 of our territory. So we don't have special legislations for the use of airspace in the Northern Metropolis. That much is clear. Mr. Chen Xiuhong. Thank you, Madam Chair. We're at Clause 5 under Division 1, Part 3, Interpretation. This interpretation applies to Division 1 of Part 3. We just talked about Northern Metropolis land or building and the relevant references. I have some questions regarding Clause 6. The interpretation in Clause 6 should apply to the entire part as well. Why is the relevant references under Cap 131 plan in Clause 6 instead of Clause 5? There is a reference of relevant Cap 131 plan in Clause 5. Why is it only included in Clause 6? Because it applies to Clause 5 as well. In Clause 5, it says that the NM land or building are those that fall within and Cap 131 plan. But in Clause 6, relevant Cap 131 plan means any NM land or building that is within the Cap 131 plan. I wonder why we do not include all the interpretations or terms in Clause 5. Mr. Chen wanted to talk about Clause 6. There are many parts in Clause 6 that have some structural issues. I think that the administration should explain further. because there are other parts to Clause 6 that is about permission. Many other members like to ask questions about Clause 5. Please do not go into Clause 6 yet. Can I ask the DOJ to assist? Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chan. We have to look at the lead-in. In Clause 5, it's about Division 1 of Part 3. If there are more than one clauses that refer to the term, so we are going to include that in Clause 5 because the relevant terms exist in Clause 6 and 7 as well. But for the interpretations and terms in Clause 6, they only exist in Clause 6. That's why we do not include it in Clause 5. So when are we going to include terms in Clause 5? When are we going to include the terms in Clause 6? If the term exists in more than one clauses, we include that in Clause 5. Should we address the question regarding the plan now or later? Mr. Chan, perhaps we should pause here. Do you have other follow-up questions regarding Clause 5? I thought that there were some special reasons behind including relevant CAT 131 plan in Clause 6. The DOJ explained that since since Northern Metropolis land or building exist in also clauses 6 and 7, that's why it's included in Clause 5. Maybe we should look into whether we should actually include the term relevant CAT 131 plan only in Clause 6. Should we not include it also in Clause 5? We should think about that. In Clauses 6 and 7, we see this drafting issue. Mr. Chan, you can give us your relevant comment. When we come to the relevant clauses, there are other elements in Clause 6. So let's focus on Clause 5 now. If you have questions regarding Clauses 6 and 7, then we should move on. Mr. Wu Yingpeng, I have a suggestion. There is no definition of land. Of course, we can interpret it in accordance with the common law. The administration said that we should understand the term in general terms, but that would give rise to confusion. Landscape of NM is very complicated. We have rivers, we have streams, we have beaches that may change its size because of tidal waves. So some plan may cover water at some times, and some plan the same plan may not have water at certain other time. We have Choton land, new development areas, farmlands in NM. Are they structures? Are they land? This is a problem. Ms. Carmen Khan, Professor Learn, and Mr. Hong Kam In all ask about the definition of land. As land is so crucial to this piece of legislation, as an important idea. If we don't interpret it, this is not ideal in terms, legally. So I hope that the administration will create a definition for land under the bill. Permanent Secretary, I thank the member for his view. As my colleagues have explained, land and building, their definitions are set out in Town Planning Ordinance, CAT 131. CAT 131 has a long history. As of right now, we have not come across any major issues regarding our interpretation of the word land. So we don't think it's necessary for us to give land a definition under the bill. We note the members' views. We will consider it.
Maybe the Development Bureau and the DOJ can study together the issue, the definition of land here. Mr. Ken Lee. Thank you, Madam Chair. Division 1, Part 3, Clause 5, Interpretation. Mr. Hong and Mr. Wu have also mentioned this. For land not covered under CAP 131 plan or land that will be reclaimed in the future, those will not be included in the definition here. So can we add in a time element to the definition so that we can also include land to be created in the future? And that is shown on the plan. For example, near Lai Chi Wo, Sam Kok Chai, and also Yan Chao Tong, well, the sea may be reclaimed to create land. So how would you deal with that scenario? Land reclamation. P.S. For the scenario mentioned by the member, if the land reclamation area falls within the OZP, then that is also included because we have already covered the 41 OZPs under the NM area. We don't have any land reclamation plan yet, but in future, if indeed that happens, that will also already been covered in the 41 OZPs. So as long as it falls within the area of the OZP, it is included, yes, although the land is not to be seen yet now. P.S. If there is indeed land reclamation, we would have to come up with the use of the land reclaimed. And if that really happens, we will make amendment to the relevant OZP, and that OZP will show the land use of the land reclaimed. So that will be addressed. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now we discuss interpretation here. Now, up to now, we want our discussion shows that we want to be as clear as possible. Now let's look at the definition of development. In the blue bill, it says its use has a meaning given by Section 1A1 of CAP 131, and it means carrying out building, engineering, mining, or other operations in, on, over, or under land, or making a material change in the use of land or buildings. I think we should adopt a target-oriented approach here. The Division 1 is about facilitating the change of use on a certain plan. Now we have the definition of development here. Since we already have the definition of development, then you would opt for the general understanding of the term land. So like what you are doing with the definition of the term use, as pointed out by your reply to the legal advisor's letter. Would you also be coming up with several scenarios, illustrating what you mean by NM land or building that falls wholly within an area in the NM that is included in a CAP 131 plan? You are very familiar with the situation, so maybe you can give us a couple of scenarios in a written reply that can help us understand, explaining what land or building is included and what is not included. Can you give us some examples in a written reply later? P.S. Thank you. Yes, no problem with Ms. Carmen Khan's second suggestion. We will follow up duly after the meeting. On Ms. Carmen Khan's first question, thank you for your reminder. There is no definition of land under CAP 131. But then it has to be viewed together with the definition of other terms. The definition of development can help us in a way of understanding what we mean by land. Now, the CAP 131 comes with a long history, and we don't have an interpretation or definition of land. And at this juncture, I'm inclined not to make any change, because when we want to add in a definition, we can never be sure that we cover all circumstances. So since we don't have a definition all along, and then if we understand the term together with the definition of other terms like development, then that might be better, because in actual practice, we don't encounter any problems. So I'm inclined not to add in the definition of land. I do hear members' views, so we will consider those anyway. Well, let me see if my understanding is correct. The member asked about land reclamation. Maybe there is a pothole on the ground or a channel, and then it will be decked. Then that's already covered. It's also part of the land. You have already included it. Is that right? So it means that you don't have to say change the OZP every time, say a pothole or a channel is decked and so on and so forth. That is my understanding. Is that correct? So I'll see if the planning department have anything to add in a minute. I'll say this. If you talk about a river or a stream or a channel which will change the landscape of a certain area. Now, under that circumstance, as long as it is located within the 41 OZPs, we have already addressed that is, it has already been included. And the member asked about reclamation, sea reclamation. I think it's altogether a separate matter. I'm talking about the filling of streams and rivers and so on. Now, as long as this is within the 41 OZPs, it is already included. Now, I would like to say something more about sea reclamation. As long as it is a water body within the OZP and NM area, then it will be included. Going by our experience, if we want to reclaim the sea to create land, we would definitely put a use to the land that is reclaimed. We would definitely amend the OZP to reflect the proposed use for the land reclaimed. So that area would then definitely fall within the NM area. And when we amend the OZP, we will show that this is a piece of land. So that falls within the OZP. So whether we're talking about a small-scale decking of a river or channel or large-scale sea reclamation, as long as they are within the 41 OZPs, they're included. Now, can I say this? As long as it is within the OZP, it is subject to the streamlined procedure. But then there might be small-scale changes to the OZP. And then you will go by the usual practice. You would go to the town planning board. And you're not just amending the boundaries. You would be going through the usual procedure to address or deal with the change. Is my understanding correct? Yes, correct. Mr. Andrew Lam. It seems that everyone is very concerned about the term land. Let me state my stance. I object to including a definition of land in this bill. Just now I said whether we're talking about a land or building, we are actually targeting or concerned about the use. We're not so much concerned about the carriers like land or building. Now, you can say control the height of a building on a land, Now, Ms. Cummins is right in pointing out that you can also make use of the area under the land. We also talked about water bodies. Well, in the last term of government, we discussed the foreshore seabed foreshore ordinance, and that the water bodies are also under controlled. And the water bodies may change because of climate change or tidal changes and so on. And I don't think we should give a definition to land here, and it is something very dangerous. Land is also used or interpreted in some other ways in some other ordinances. So that is my stance. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are all clear about this? Yes, I think we have had lengthy discussion on Clause 5. And when we come to Clauses 6 and 7, we might have to touch on Clause 5 again. Anyway, let me ask the administration to take us through Clause 6, and that is the permission for uses or development of NM land or buildings. In subsection 1, despite anything in Cap 131, the Town Planning Ordinance, the TPB may, in accordance with the NM Town Planning Regulation, grant permission for any use or development of any NM land or building, regardless of whether the relevant Cap 131 plan for the land or building provides for the grant of such permission. Subsection 2. For all purposes, A permission granted under subsection 1 is to be regarded as a permission granted under section 16 of Cap 131, and B, a decision of the Town Planning Board under subsection 1 is to be regarded as a decision of the Town Planning Board under section 16(3) of Cap 131. Subsection 3, without limiting subsection 2, section 16 of Cap 131, and that is the review mechanism, applies to an applicant for permission under subsection 1 who is aggrieved by a decision of the TPB under subsection 1, as it applies to an applicant who is aggrieved by a decision of the TPB under section 16 of Cap 131. Subsection 4, anything permitted under a permission granted under subsection 1 is not a contravention of any Cap 131 plan. And subsection 5 in this section, an M Town Planning Regulation means a regulation made under Section 7, relevant Cap 131 plan in relation to any NM land or building, means that Cap 131 plan prepared for the area within which the land or building falls. And then Town Planning Board means the Town Planning Board appointed under Section 2 of Cap 131. There are 5 subclauses under Clause 6. I have allowed the administration to read through them so that the members can have a whole picture, and we can have a discussion jointly on these clauses. Mr. Lam Chen Sing. In bracket 5, you mentioned about NM Town Planning Regulation. I know that this time we are focusing on the primary legislation only, but then the subsidiary legislation and regulation has been submitted to us for preview. So I have taken a look at the subsidiary regulation. This may be related to the primary legislation, and that is that there is a definition of the specified area. Under the subsidiary regulation, there is the definition of specified area. Well, the streamlined procedure can be applied except 2 areas, and one is any zone which is mentioned in section 4 bracket 1 bracket G of Cap 131, that is the green belts, conservation areas, and coastal marine parks and so on. And then there is also another area, the area shown colored pink on any plan settled in Schedule 1, Lau Fao Shan, Ma Chao Long, NT North, Priority Development Area, and so on and so forth. I would like to understand that in Schedule 1, what are the what is so special about these plans? Does it mean they don't have the relevant OZPs? Is there anything special about the development? Do you have a timetable on formulating OZPs for these areas? And in Section 6, there is this backdoor, so to speak. The plans can be repealed, and that is to say these areas can also enjoy the streamlined procedures under the NM Development Ordinance. So for Lau Foshan, Ma Zhoulong, under the subsidiary legislation, what is so special about them? When can they be entitled to the procedures under the primary legislation?
頭先
The members just talked about 4 areas in Schedule 1. There are 9 development areas in the Northern Metropolis. 5 of them already have their own OZPs. Regarding the 4 specified areas in Schedule 1, they don't have the OZPs yet. They're Lau Foshan, Ngao Tou, Ma Zhoulong, as well as priority development areas of New Territories North New Town. Regarding these 4 specified areas, we do have a timetable for drafting the OZPs for 3 of them. We are going to draft the OZPs next year for the 3 specified areas in Schedule 1. We talked about changing uses of land through a streamlined procedures. Why should they not apply to the 4 specified areas in Schedule 1? Regarding these 4 new development areas, we're going to specify the land uses for them. We don't want to, in this transitional period, encourage people to amend the land uses through streamlined procedures. Because the planning of NM is government-led, we want to draft the OZPs specifying the land uses for these 4 areas in the NM first. In the future, the streamlined procedures will apply. As we mentioned in Regulation 6, the OZPs for the 4 new development areas will be drafted. And after they are drafted, the streamlined procedures will apply. That's our idea. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Webster. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask about Clause 6, Bracket 1. In the government's reply to the legal advisor's letter, they said that regarding the term use is intended to carry its general meaning similar to usage under Cap 131, so it should not be redefined here. But if we look at the Clause 6, Bracket 1, it says, despite anything in Cap 131, the TPB may, in accordance with the NM regulation, grant permission for any use or development of any NM land or building. I have a few questions. Under the existing town planning ordinance, according to the existing mechanism, if we are to amend the plan, should we act in accordance with Clause 6, Bracket 1 and invoke a streamlined approach? Are we combining the amendment procedures and permission granting procedures? What will be the implications? My third question, if the land use granted by the town planning board does not align with that of the government, say for example, if the TPB grant residential land more than commercial land, will that affect the revenue of the government or budget for infrastructures? Because that will have implications on the budget. Who will take the question? The Permanent Secretary, please. Regarding Clause 6, Bracket 1, what we're trying to address is the change of land use. If we don't have this piece of dedicated legislation for the Northern Metropolis, say, for example, if I have a piece of GIC land, government, institution, and community land, allow me to explain to the member about this in greater detail. Usually we have a column 1 use and column 2 use for a piece of land. Take the GIC land as an example. GIC is usually for government facilities. We usually set out all the facilities in column 1. If the landowner wants to use the land for the purposes set out in column 1, they don't have to make any applications. We also have now a column 2 uses. The landowner will have to make a planning application, that is a Section 16 application. That's a simple procedures. We want to now invoke Section 16 to address the column 2 application, which is a streamlined procedures. What we're trying to address with Clause 6, Bracket 1 is that, say, for example, if I want to build a data center at GIC land, is not column 1 or column 2 uses. What should I do? Without a dedicated legislation, I need to invoke a Section 12A application under Cap 131. It takes at least 9 months. This is a rezoning procedures. It's a lengthy process. If a developer identify a GIC land for a data center, I need to rezone the land and it will take 9 months. We want to shorten the process because the developer may not wait such a long time for us. What does Clause 6, Bracket 1 mean is that if this happens in NM, I can also invoke the streamlined procedures, that is Section 16 and application. It is as short as 2 months, comparing to 9 months under the Section 12A application. So that's what we're trying to achieve with Clause 6, Bracket 1. Even if we are rezoning a piece of land, if it happens in the NM, I can invoke the streamlined procedures. Comparing to other parts of Hong Kong, this is a quicker process because I can invoke Section 16 of Cap 131. Repurposing a land may affect the land premium. Say, for example, GIC land may not be of much value. It's usually for building schools or community halls. If we allow people to rezone the land and turn it into, say, a data center through a Section 16 applications, that may bring about land premium for the government. You just talked about technical assessment. For Section 16 application, the vetting time may be shorter, but the applicants still have to follow some of the procedures on, say, for example, technical assessment. If we are to rezone the land from GIC to data center, we need to make sure that the applicant will not affect the traffic and environment in the neighborhood. They need to engage a consultant to make a technical assessment. Second, we will continue to follow the Section 16 procedures in the sense that the planning application will be gazetted and the public will be invited to give their views. The technical assessments and the views from the public will be submitted to the Town Planning Board for vetting. Thank you. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Madam Chair. According to the bill, an applicant can invoke either 12A or 16 application. If that's possible, then there may be consequences. When it comes to the regulation, I think that we need to make things clear. We need to clarify if the applicant have the option, or is it the town planning board have the option to invoke either, to choose whether to invoke section 12A or 16. And this may be subject to judicial review, and there is such a risk. That's why I hope that in the regulation, the administration will clarify the scenarios that the town planning board may come across. We need to have a clear guidelines. When I file an application, should I file a section 12A or section 16 applications? If my piece of land falls within NM, I can invoke maybe section 12A. Because some land use may have never been seen before in Hong Kong when it comes to the Northern Metropolis, 2 months may not be enough time for us to assess the demand of, say, for example, parking spaces. That's why we have Section 12A and Section 16 applications. If we need to make an assessment within 2 months, that there may be technical issues. I do support the framework, but when it comes to regulations and other details, are they intact? I hope that the government will look into it further. Thank you. The Permanent Secretary. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for his comment. First of all, now we have clause 6 bracket 1, that is, applicant may invoke section 16 for rezoning of OZPs. I believe that the developers and the market would opt for section 16 instead of section 12A. That's the reality. When we consulted the trade on the bill, the sector very much welcomed the streamlined procedures. Section 16 application process can be as short as 2 months. The member worried about technical assessment and how long it will take. We do have a mechanism allowing the applicant to extend their application period to complete the technical assessment. Third, the member asked us to be careful when we draft the regulations because we are not mandating applicants to invoke Section 16. We're offering a choice. How is it going to impact our regulations? We will look into all the possible drafting issues. Thank you. I have an example. If I am a company, I file an application. I want to build a low-orbit satellite station at a certain piece of land in the Northern Metropolis. This technical assessment report may not be able to dealt with within 2 months in the government. This may happen because NM is about INT. Any response? We note the member's comment. Thank you. Next, Mr. Holden Chow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question relating to drafting. From what I heard, you read out 6 bracket 1. So the streamlined model is provided under this dedicated legislation And then Section 16 will be evoked when there is a change in the land use. And 2A, you are very clear. A permission granted under subsection 1 is to be regarded as a permission granted under Section 16 of Cap 131. Sometimes you will deal with the applications by Section 12A. Now here you said that a permission granted under subsection 1 is to be regarded as a permission granted under Section 16 of Cap 131. So does it mean that the permission granted under 6 bracket 1 will be regarded as a permission granted under Section 16 or Section 12A? Both. Because there is also, though, another subsection on review and appeal, and Section 16 is related to review and appeal. So you are not trying to change the way Section 16 is being invoked and used. Other sections are also related, so I would like to find out more. P.S. Mr. So, Director, Mr. So rather. The member is right. Now for this bill, this is an application for planning permission. It is only related to Section 16. It is a may. The TPB may do so. And if under exceptional circumstances whereby the applicant would like to still stick to Section 12A, that would not be included in this piece of bill. The applicant has to go through the existing practice under Cap 131. So this is very clear. The NM bill is just about the Section 16 because for cases involving Section 12A, those will be covered under the existing Cap 131. Some applicants may opt to use to invoke Section 12A. They are allowed to do so, but it's not related to this bill. It will not. The procedure will not get faster in that case. Yes, that's very clear. Thank you. I have a question on Clause 6 as well. We also discussed this. The essence of the dedicated legislation is reflected in Clause 6. In Clause 6.1, you said that TPB may, in accordance with the NM Town Planning Regulation. So in the English version, it's may. In the Chinese rendition, it's ho. So may means that the TPB has the discretion to do so or not. So the TPB can, in accordance with the dedicated legislation, grant permission. And in bracket 2b, you said clearly that there is a cross-reference, and that is under Section 16.3 of Cap 131. And that is the shortening the time taken to process the application, the 2 months. So under the dedicated legislation, that is the essence. To my understanding, for the primary legislation that we are now scrutinizing, we can exercise much discretion. You said that despite anything in Cap 131, that is the phrase used. That is a key to the entire dedicated legislation, and the TPB is empowered to grant permission for any use or development of any NM land or building, despite anything in Cap 131. So we should be clear about this. And in Clause 6, bracket 2, it is set is to be regarded. It is not may be regarded. It should be regarded. is as a permission granted under Section 16 of Cap 131, because Section 16 of Cap 131 applies to the all of Hong Kong. But in exercising the power under 6(1), then the permission granted thereon is to be regarded as a permission granted under Section 16 of Cap 131. That is the essence of the entire legislation. So I have to set this out very clearly so that we don't go around in circles anymore. And then bracket 6(3), let's look at both the Chinese and the English versions together, because 6(2)(b) is the phrase is to be regarded as should be. And in subsection 3, it says without limiting subsection 2, and that is in relation to 16(3), since we have the empowerment or the authority, then without limiting subsection 2, and that is the applicant has the right to make an application for a review. So his right to do so is not being deprived. Now, if the applicant feels aggrieved, so without limiting subsection 2, it can still apply for a review, and that is he can appeal, make an appeal. So 1, 2, 3 under clause 3 are all important. How certain parts of the original Cap 131 still remain in force, but then the special privileges are set out here in clause 6, 1, 2, and 3. Does the administration agree with what I said? Well, Madam Chair, you have been very clear-minded on this. Your understanding is the same as ours. Bracket 1, 2, 3. Well, the overall effect is this. When there is a change to the land use of an NM area, we can invoke the streamlined procedures, and that is linked to the Section 16 of Cap 131, and that is we mentioned this. We have to make the plan for public inspection for 3 weeks and so on. And that also includes that if the applicant is not happy with the decision of the TPB on Section 16, he can make an application for review. Now, bracket 4, it is drafted in a very good way. Now, the TPB, in exercising the power under the dedicated legislation, the TPB is protected. Anything permitted under permission granted under subsection 1 is not a contravention of any Cap 131 plan. Just like the Basic Law. The Basic Law has articles which grant special privileges to Hong Kong, and that doesn't constitute a contravention of the laws of the country. And I think the same rationale here applies here, and I think this is a very well drafted here. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. You have been highlighting the essence of the legislation. That is the first area that we are looking at in expediting the development of NM, and you have talked about what we're doing legally. Now, I have come from a legal background myself, and I'm very concerned about using this piece of legislation to amend Cap 131. Now, in the absence of this dedicated legislation, if we are changing the land use other than of uses other than in columns 1 and 2, then it will take 9 months. And then under the streamlined procedures, Section 16 will be invoked. Now, apart from these provisions, I would say that we are even more flexible than Section 16 in the original law. It says in clause 6.1 here is regardless of whether the relevant Cap 131 plan for the land or building provides for the grant of such permission, because in Section 16 of Cap 131, certain restrictions are imposed on the TPB. In 16.3, it should be granting permission subject to subsection 4, and the subsection 4 says that the board may grant permission under subsection 1.3 only to the extent shown or provided for or specified in the plan. So you are even taking away this condition. I have run through the subsidiary legislation quickly. You are also taking away the phrase subject to subsection 4. So this limitation has already been taken away. The TPB doesn't have to bind itself to subsection 4 as well. So it shows the government's determination to go beyond Section 16. The restriction related to Section 16 will be taken away too. So you can use as a piece of subsidiary legislation to take away a certain restriction. So that's why you include the phrase, regardless of whether the plan for the land or building provides the fund for the grant of such permission. So you have to provide for that in the primary legislation. Another question related to Mr. Lam Chen-Xing's question, and the PSS also made a response. You said that the streamlined procedures will not apply to conservation areas, and that is those listed in Section 4, bracket 1, bracket G. We want to make sure that your legislative intent is reflected in both the primary legislation and the subsidiary legislation. And then also Lau Fau Shan, Ma Chao, Ma Chao Long, Ao Tao, NT, North Newtown Development Priority Area. These are also excluded because these areas right now don't have any OZP covering them. So that's why they are taken away. But then in the subsidiary legislation, you do have a mechanism whereby when all the OZPs for these 4 zones have been formulated, then you would be repealing the restriction. But then there is only one OZP which has not been formulated. So does it mean that only when all of the OZPs for the 4 zones have been completed will you be taking away the exclusion of these 4 areas? 2 questions from Ms. Carmen Khan. Like what Ms. Khan said, under Cap 131, under what circumstances will we invoke Section 16? If you want to change the land use to a use under column 2, you can invoke 16. But then in the NM, we want to achieve this. Even if the use is not included in column 1, 2, or say in column 3, the Section 16 can still be invoked. The use that I plan is not included in column 1 or column 2. I can still invoke Section 16 to deal with the matter. So hence, clause bracket 1. And the last phrase is regardless of whether the relevant Cap 1.3 plan for the land or building provides for the grant of such permission. In the NM, say, even if the plan doesn't allow you to invoke Section 16, the applicant can still invoke Section 16. So even if the use is not included in column 2, I can still invoke Section 16 to change the land use. So that's the response to the first question. Second question, for the 4 new development areas where there are yet no OZPs, the current thinking is that we will not wait for the completion of the OZPs for all areas before we include them or cover them under the streamlined procedures. Say, I suppose we would start working on Lao Fao Zan towards the end of the year. And once that is done, that plan will be included in the NM area. And that is the streamlined procedures under 6(1) can be evoked to address or deal with the change in the land use in that area.
咁樣解釋嘅，咁即
I thank the Permanent Secretary for her explanation. Now we know that the bill will allow for the streamlined procedures. Because I didn't understand why there is such a reference of regardless of in clause 6(1). For the examples of data centers or low orbit satellite facilities, they are allowed under the bill, even though they may not fall within column 1 or column 2 use of the OZPs. I think that the market welcome it. And in the subsidiary legislations, the sections 13 and section 16(4) will be removed. Now, I'd like you to look at the subsidiary legislation. We are not scrutinizing it, but I think that the Permanent Secretary need to make sure that there is such a flexibility. Now we have 4 specified areas. They are in Schedule 1 of the subsidiary legislation. That is the Lafao Shangao Tao Ma Cholong and the Priority Development Area in NT North. Please look into it after the meeting. Thank you. Well, the Permanent Secretary said that they will include the OZPs in the NM after they are drafted. We are scrutinizing the primary ordinance today. The administration should perhaps look into the subsidiary legislation. Ms. So? Director, please. Thank you. Of course, we will look into it after the meeting. In Schedule 1 to the subsidiary legislation, there are 4 plans, and the repealed plan will be included in Schedule 2. If you look at Schedule 2, we do have subsections 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4. We can allow these 4 subclauses to come into operation by way of subsidiary legislation. After the OZP has been drafted, they will be included in Schedule 2 and be repealed. I can invoke this relevant subsection, and as long as it comes into operation, the relevant specified area will be repealed. Mr. Chan Xiu-hong. Thank you. The questions that I wanted to ask have been addressed by the Permanent Secretary and the Director. I'd just like to clarify or confirm that the town planning part in the dedicated legislation is clear enough. Clause 6(1) is particularly important. We have read the relevant subsidiary legislation. We need to read the primary and subsidiary legislation together to make sure that we have a full picture. The bill will empower the town planning board or applicant to, in accordance with their need, if the intended use do not fall within column 1 or 2, when they want to make a rezoning application through the bill, they can choose to either invoke Section 12A or Section 16, that is faster, under Cap 131. I think that the Permanent Secretary has explained very clearly. I have no further question. More importantly, regarding the word can, if the applicant chooses to invoke Section 16 to file their application, under the bill, it is said that the Town Planning Board can scrutinize the application with Section 16. If the TPB thinks that the application is not eligible for a Section 16 application and reject it, then Clause 6 bracket 2 bracket B will apply. Many subclauses in Clause 6 set out clearly that the decision to be made by the TPB should comply with the requirements under Cap 131. So I think that the power is very clear. We are not scrutinizing the regulations today, but we've read it. I think that regarding the specified areas set out in Schedule 1 of the regulation, they're clear. After scrutinizing the principal ordinance, when the governments submit the draft of the subsidiary legislation for scrutiny, we may have further questions. I think that we will deal with it on another occasion. I've just gone through the regulations. I don't think that there is any major changes, so I support the relevant clauses. I asked why we separate subclause 2 into bracket A and bracket B. The PS said that they need to be clear about the differentiation between permission and decision. Because subclause 2A is about permission, subclause 2B is about decision, which is broader in nature. According to Cap 131, Section 16, bracket 3, the TPB can grant or reject to grant a planning application. In order to avoid confusion or prevent disputes, we want to set out clearly the differentiation between permission and decision, and this is to avoid confusion. That's my view. Thank you. Regarding subclause 2AB, anything to add from the PS? Mr. Chan's understanding is correct. Regarding subclause 2A, it covers situation where the TPB grant the planning application. Regarding subclause 2B, it sets out the case that TPB can grant or reject to grant a planning application. Decision covers rejection as well. Mr. Chan Xiu-hong, thank you. I think that's correct. That's a right move. The decision may give rise to situations set out in subclause 3, that is, applicant may be aggrieved by the decision. I think that's the right move to set them out clearly and separately. Next, Mr. Alex Fan. Thank you, Chairman. The administration have given their explanation regarding Clause 6. I support the manner of drafting regarding the regulation. I have some questions. Clause 6, bracket 4, it says anything permitted under a permission granted under subsection 1 is not a contravention of any Cap 131 plan. Cap 131 plan have been defined in previous clauses. If you look at 6 bracket 2AB, there are references of to be regarded as a permission granted, to be regarded as a decision. I wonder if it's necessary to include subclause 4. Because if anything permitted under a permission granted under subsection 1 is not a contravention, then we don't need 2A and 2B. I'd like to know more about the reasons behind why we need to have this 6 bracket 4. Some other questions. 6 bracket 1, it says despite anything in Cap 131. According to my limited understanding of the laws of Hong Kong, in English version, we often use the word notwithstanding, but now in this bill, we use the word despite anything. I think that there's no difference between despite anything and notwithstanding. Is there any reason behind using despite anything instead of notwithstanding? 6 bracket 2AB. In Chinese, they use the word esteemed as or to be regarded. In English, they use the word to be regarded. I've just looked up the dictionary. We rarely use the word to be regarded. We often use deemed or to be deemed, shall be deemed. Why do we use the word to be regarded? Legally, do they carry the same meaning as to be deemed? I'd like to know more about reasons behind such a translation. Can the administration elaborate so that we know more about the significance behind the choice of wordings? And, well, 3 questions. The Permanent Secretary or perhaps the DOJ can answer the questions. I will ask the DOJ to supplement. On the first question, why we have subclause 4. We just like to further clarify the entire thing. The permission granted under subclause 1 should not contravene any plan. We just want to reiterate such a message. I will see if the DOJ have anything to add. They should help us address the other questions put by the member. The DOJ, please. Thank you. First, why we need this subclause 4. In 6.1, it says despite anything in Cap 131, the TPB may grant permission for any use or development. Some people may have this question. Because the plan does not say that you have the permission, have the power to grant, will anyone question the TPB for contravening Cap 131 plan? To avoid such a challenge, we set out subclause 4, and it's necessary. Despite notwithstanding, the member's observation is correct. Under existing laws, we use notwithstanding, but according to the latest governing guide, we choose to now use simple and modern English, and we use despite. It's set out in the governing guide. Regarding deemed and shall be regarded, according to the latest guide, when it comes to concepts like as such, we used to be regarded. Previously, we tend to use deemed. Now we opt to use to be regarded, and that's the guidance. Thank you.
Anything to add? I welcome members discuss both the Chinese and English versions together. Next one, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I would like to understand or confirm in the primary legislation, there is no particular mention of specific uses whereby the Section 12A are not allowed. And the bill invokes in the original Cap 131, Section 41G, country parks, green belts are excluded. I think I'm clear on this point, but let's also make that clear to the public as well. We haven't yet come to the scrutiny of that section yet. There are 4 areas with no OZPs. In the NM area, there are country park enclaves next to country parks. I have not looked into the information myself. So how much enclaves are there within the country parks? How will you deal with them if there are indeed such enclaves? Thank you, Chair. PS, please. On the first point of Mr. Lam, the application scope of the streamlined procedures. The subsidiary legislation or regulations will set those out clearly. Which areas are not applicable? Cap 3131, Section 4, bracket 1, bracket G, coastal or conservation areas. Even if we want to streamline the land use amendment procedures, we're not encouraging large-scale development in such conservation areas. So if there is an application for the change of land use in these conservation areas, well, we still have to go through the lengthy Section 12A process. And also the 4 new development areas where there is no OZPs are also excluded. You asked about the land use in country parks. Can I give you a written reply later on? Indeed, within the NM, there are areas which are not covered by OZPs, and some of them are country parks. As to the exact area, I will give you a written response later on. Mr. Lam is asking if we want to change the land use to such area, how will we deal with them? Is this your question? Madam Chair, I would like to seek clarification. I'm not concerned about country parks per se. I am referring to the enclaves of country parks. I believe that the PSU know where I'm coming from. I guess that there are still areas not covered by OZPs. So how will you address them? I thank you for giving us a written reply after the meeting. Well, the PS has promised to do so, then that would make things clear. Ms. Carmen Gahn. Thank you, Chair. My first concern is the same as Mr. Lam's. I hope that you can give us a written reply. This time, we are separating our examination of the primary legislation and the subsidiary legislation. And actually, much that we have to do has to be done through the subsidiary legislation. And I thank Madam Chair for allowing us to raise questions in relation to subsidiary legislation or regulations. The PS referred to the 4 new development areas which are not covered by OZPs, and the PS said that you can work on them one by one with flexibility. The Schedule 1 would only be repealed after once the subsections 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Section 2 have all come into operation. But then you have answered my query, but that doesn't mean that we have accepted the way the drafting is done now. Ms. Kamen Khan has been right. And in Schedule 2, as I said, we are listing the plan one by one under different sub-clauses here. So if we are to repeal a certain plan, we will bring into operation the subclause that relates to that particular plan. And Ms. Carmen Khan refers to repeal of plans in Schedule 1. Schedule 1 expires once all the subsections have come into operation. So that is the last step that we will be taking. After we have worked on all the plans, then we want to say categorically the Schedule 1, the entire Schedule 1 will lose effect. The results are the same. I will not dwell on it. In specified area under Clause 3, the limitations are set out here. Only when the 4 plans have been repealed when Schedule 1, before Schedule 1 is repealed. Well, go back and take a look. I think we have a full discussion on Clause 6, and the administration will give us some written response in relation to the discussion. And I believe that the administration has heard members' views. So before the next meeting, please give us a written response. Let's move on to Clause 7, regulations for facilitating uses or development of Northern Metropolis land or buildings. The Chief Executive Council may make regulations to A, provide for matters relating to the application for the grant of permission under Section 6(1), B, provide for matters relating to the grant of permission under that section, including the imposition of any limitations or conditions on such grant of permission, and C, provide for modifications to any Cap 131 plan for extending the maximum duration of any temporary use or development of NM land or buildings. I would like to extend the meeting time by 15 minutes because clauses 5, 6, and 7 are interlinked. And these also are related to the subsidiary legislation. We might not be able to finish the discussion, but at least I think we should have in-depth discussions. First, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, a question on the wording. Clause 7, bracket C. Modifications to plan, Cap 131 plea. The Chinese rendition is 修改. But anyway, however, it is used. 变通 is used here. Is there any particular reason, or is it just a choice of word for this on this occasion? DOJ. Thank you, Madam Chair. There is indeed a difference. If you look at the subsidiary legislation as well, if for a plan, if the temporary is yours for 5 years, the modification is that it will be changed to 7 years. So it doesn't mean that that will be 修改 in Chinese. According to the regulation, it will be modified to 7 years. So the word modification, as the word here, is better. In many other ordinances, the Chinese term 变通 is used for modification. So under the present context, the 变通 is more appropriate. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Chair. I have a question on bracket B. The legal advisor has asked a question on this. When we grant permission, we can impose any limitations or conditions on the grant of permission. That is related to the legal advice's letter, the question. Well, we should be empowering the Chief Executive and Council through the primary legislation and not the subsidiary legislation. Now they are proposing to do it through subsidiary legislation. Can the administration explain why? Planning Department, please. For 7B, we're not talking about limitations under approval conditions. We are talking about power conferred in the subsidiary legislation. That's our understanding with the DOJ. That's not the planning related to the planning approval. The planning approval is being dealt with under Section 16, and it should not be dealt with here. So can I see if the DOJ has anything to add? DOJ, yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. In our response to the legal advice's letter, it refers to the limitations or conditions in exercising the power when granting a permission. Say there would be a maximum period of 7 years that can be granted, or the permission can only be will only be granted if the application falls within a certain geographical location. It is an empowering provision. So in future, limitations or conditions can be imposed on the areas that I mentioned. In the regulations, we are talking about limitations on the authority rather than the limitations related to the permission. Yes, yes, is that understanding correct? Yes. We have also the regulations for a preview, so I would like to look at the two together to get a better understanding. In the primary legislation, 7C is clear. You are going to extend the maximum duration of any temporary use or development of NM land or buildings. This is an important policy of the dedicated legislation. Mr. Lam also asked a question about the word 变通 in Chinese. We seldom use that term in the past. Or dedicated legislation is all about modification or change to meet with the development needs. In the subsidiary legislation, clause 441A, you said that for use or development of the land or building for a period of not exceeding 3 years. That's your target. And then bracket 4, bracket 3, bracket C, the permission granted must be for a period not exceeding 7 years. What about the 5 years? When we talk about country parks, is 3 years, and city areas 5 years. Are you addressing this issue in your regulation? Where can we find the term 5 years? In clause section 5, yes, you also use the term modification. Section 5. A maximum duration of 5 years here. So does it mean that 3 years refer to the country parks and rural areas, and 5 years is about the city, town areas? Because we're talking about two different types of land use. Can you make that clearer here? So 5 years will be extended to 7 years for temporary use, and then 3 years extended to a maximum of 7 years. Can you make things clearer here?
一個所謂自己已經捉
Please. Madam Chair, if we talk about OZPs, in an NM we have 41 of them. There are two types of these plans. 36 of them are rural OZPs. For the remaining 5 of them, they are urban and new town outline zoning plans. Among these 36 rural OZPs, the temporary uses should not last for more than 3 years. For the 5 urban and new town OZPs, it set out clearly that the temporary use should not exceed 5 years. So if you refer to the relevant plans, you will have a clearer understanding. The members of the public may not be able to follow the discussion. I hope that they can, especially for the stakeholders. We have to cross-reference the outline zoning plan before we know whether Section 41A or Section 5 of the subsidiary legislation apply. Should you not set out clearly in the subsidiary legislation that we have 2 types of outline zoning plan? Should we ask the reader to have some basic understanding regarding the 2 types of OZPs, the maximum temporary use period allowed for different types of OZPs, and they will also have to listen to the discussion? Should you not make things clearer for us, for the members of the public, as well as users? Can you not paint a clearer picture for all of us? This piece of dedicated legislation is quite restrictive. Unlike basic law, it covers everything. Much cross-referencing is involved with this piece of bill. Readers have to go to the 41 rural OZPs and the urban and new town OZPs when they read the regulations. I will see if my colleagues can assist. Like the last meeting, we said that we're going to explain the 41 OZP in writing. We can explain in our written submissions which 36 of the plans are rural ones and which 5 of them are urban and new town plans, and which plan is subject to the 3-year and which plan is subject to the 5-year temporary use limit. The Madam Chair asked if we should clarify things in the primary ordinance as well. We will go back and look into it. I believe that in the future, in order to implement the streamlined procedures, the Town Planning Board will issue some guidelines. And that is a way for us to clarify under what circumstances will the temporary use be able to be extended from 3 years to 7 years, from 5 years to 7 years. If the Madam Chair agree, we will go back and look into the issue. How, through what channel should we clarify the regulations with the public? Maybe you can elaborate it in the regulation so that people don't have to refer to the 41 OZPs. Please look into it. All we want is the members of the public and the users understand about the bills and regulations. Ms. Julia Lau. Now we have this notice saying that among the 7 sites of the Urban Renewal Authority, the unused plot ratio can be transferred to the Northern Metropolis. If the land does not fall within the CAP 131 plan, and if the plot ratio or GFA have been exhausted, how should we address it? Should we file an application with the TPB for relaxation? Permanent Secretary. I believe that the member is describing the situation. That is, if we are to transfer plot ratio from urban area to the NM, and if the plot ratio after transfer exceed the upper limit allowed in the outline zoning plan. Under such circumstances, the developers will need to file a Section 16 application to relax the existing plot ratio at the piece of land in the Northern Metropolis, or even the height restrictions. They wouldn't have to invoke the streamlined procedure set out in the dedicated legislation for NM, because the dedicated legislation is about rezoning. We want the applications to invoke Section 16 instead of 12A. The situation you described can be addressed under the existing CAP 131. The applicant only have to file a Section 16 application. Ms. Carmen Khan. Madam Chair, the Permanent Secretary just talked about the 36 rural OZPs. If we want to apply for permission for temporary use, it can be done, well, the temporary use can only last for 3 years or less. There are some conditions to it. That is, there is no other plans for the land, and only under such circumstances can the applicant apply for alternate temporary use. Thank you for the question. We have a 3-year limit for temporary use with rural outline zoning plan. If column 2 uses do not apply. Well, they are already set out in the notes to the OZP. There are such regulations with the rural OZP. In the notes to the urban and new town OZP, we also set out very clearly that the temporary use should not last for 5 years or more. What does the restriction means? Well, for some land, they are rather restrictive. In the notes to the OZP, there are some descriptions. For outdoor go down, they can not exist in natural conservation zone or shoreline conservation zone. These uses are not allowed even temporarily for 3 years or 5 years. These are some of the exceptions. Some temporary uses will not be allowed, and they are set out very clearly in the notes to the plan. Well, I hope that the administration will explain clearly in writing, because some investors or developers may not be aware of such restrictions or requirements. There are some uses that are not allowed categorically for some land. For urban and new town plans. That is Section 5 of the subsidiary legislation. No application is required. Am I right? The maximum duration will be extended automatically to 7 years. Mr. Andrew Lam and I have some more questions. After I've put my questions, I will see if there are other members who have further questions. I may want to start with the Clause 8 in the next meeting. I think that the administration need to submit some supplementary explanation. Now I have questions regarding 4(3) of the regulation. It says A, in applying Section 16 of Cap 131 in reliance on subsection 2, the reference to subject to subsection 4 in Section 16 Bracket 3 of Cap 131 is to be disregarded. Cap 131 refers to the Town Planning Ordinance. What is Section 16 Bracket 4 of Cap 131? It says that the TPB can, in accordance with subsection 3, only to the extent shown or provided for or specified in the plan. Can you explain the correlation between subsection 4 and section 5 of the regulation? I may need to extend the meeting by another 15 minutes. Permanent Secretary, please be succinct in explaining the scope of application. This is a rather technical question. I will ask the Planning Department to answer this. Cap 131, Town Planning Ordinance 16 Bracket 4 says that the Town Planning Board may grant permission under subsection 3 only to the extent shown or provided for or specified in the plan. When we grant Section 16 application, they should be about column 2 uses or temporary uses. In other words, the uses should be allowed in the plan. Because of this piece of dedicated legislation, we want to remove barriers. That's why we want to allow for a greater flexibility. Section 16 applications can be filed despite not being allowed in the plan. So I think that members need to be aware of this word disregarded. If you have, well, please submit to us the English version of the regulation. If you have the English rendition, please give it to us. If we all agree, I will allow Mr. Andrew Lam to put his question, and then we will wrap up the meeting. Thank you. I only have one question. Well, that's not a question. I have one comment. I think that the administration needs to explain the bill more clearly to the public. I'd like to raise 2 points. First, the law is the law. If we refer to Cap 131, it does not restrict the flexibility of any outline zoning plan. In the process of interpretation, I think that the government needs to be more careful. We should not turn operational restrictions into legal interpretation. Second, which part of Hong Kong is urban area, which part of it is rural area? I think that we need to remove the distinction. That's my reminder. Thank you. Permanent Secretary, we note the members' view. When we draft our written reply, we will keep that in mind. I understand Mr. Lam's reminder. When it comes to a dedicated legislation, we need to be fair to all types of. Well, no, we now try to be fair. We extend the temporary use to 7 years across the board. In the dedicated legislation, we treat the rural and urban plans the same. No further questions regarding Clause 7. I hope that in the next meeting we can start with Clause 8. We have duly discussed the clauses 5 to 7. Thank you very much for your questions today. The administration is going to give us a written reply regarding the 41 OZPs. Please give them to us when they're ready. The next meeting will be held between 2:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. on the 31st of August, Monday. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.